Good morning. Welcome again to Morning Devotion. And thank you again so much for our time together. It's Holy Week, I know, but I'm not going to read the Holy Week passage today from the Scripture, even though that's part of our reading. Instead, what I'd like to do is take you back to the book of Joshua. Now, we'll have lots of teaching on Holy Week this week in School of the Cross. We're going to be doing 6 or 7 hours of straight teaching from 9 in the morning until past 3 in the afternoon until we get done, so to speak, and then celebrate all that Jesus did with communion. And those of you that are in Abu Dhabi and Dubai and Norway and Canada and Australia that watch this every day, you can tune in by live video streaming this year to the School of the Cross. I want to take you back to the book of Joshua today, the last chapter. This is Joshua's goodbye. He was young and now he's old, and he's seen the faithfulness of God throughout his entire generation. He's been a part of the exodus of Egypt. He's watched the people go from poverty to wealth in one night as they plundered the nation of Egypt. He's seen all of the great victories. He's watched the water come out of the rock. He's watched God feed them with manna. He's seen the rebellion of the people of Israel. He's been a part of the 12 spies. I mean, this man has lived an absolute incredible lifetime. And now as he begins to get ready for heaven, and he talks to the people that he has led or been a part of the leadership of for his entire lifetime, as a great warrior, as a general, and now as the replacement of Moses. As he says his farewells, he really challenges them about a rather strange subject. We see it come out several times. In chapter 24 of Joshua, verse 2, Joshua said to all the people, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Long ago your forefathers, including Terah, the father of Abraham and Nahor, lived beyond the river and worshipped other gods. But I took your father Abram from the land beyond the river." Now look over to verse 14. "Now fear the Lord your God and serve him with all faithfulness. Throw away the gods your forefathers worshipped beyond the river and in Egypt." Throw away. The people of Israel, some of them had still hung on to these little idols that their forefathers had worshipped hundreds of years before they ever came to the promised land. For how many hundreds of years, for how many generations had a spiritually, cultural, persistent temptation of idolatry lingered within this nation? Let me say that again, because that's a mouthful. For how many generations had this spiritually, cultural, persistent temptation of idolatry lingered among these people? There are times that you and I need to recognize that there are temptations of idolatry that permeate a culture. The gods of our forefathers. These people were going all the way back to the gods of Abraham's forefathers because they felt those were their gods. And hundreds of years and how many generations had passed, and there were still people that clung to them. And Joshua said, "Would you please throw these away?" And then he ends that passage with, "But for me, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord," down in verse 15. We quote that verse commonly, but we don't understand that in context it's dealing with removing the persistent temptation of the spiritual culture of our ancestors. Now, I don't care what nation you're living in and you're watching this video today, every nation has spiritual idolatry in its history. We can go back to the Greeks and the Romans with their Zeus and Poseidon and their demigods and their gods. We can go to Norway and Sweden. The reason that witches and warlocks and druids and Harry Potter are so popular among the Caucasians is because that is their spiritual culture that's being passed out through the generations. Here in our own beloved land of the Philippines, we have all kinds of things that we won't even begin to go into. Now, at some point, we have to look back at all of that ancient spiritual idolatry that's part of our culture, and we have to throw it away. We have to make a decision to throw it away. And as he says down in verse 23, "Throw away the foreign gods that are among you and yield your hearts to the Lord." For the rest of our lives, and forgive me, we'll see it in our children, we'll see it come up in our grandchildren, and if we're still alive, we'll see it come up in our spiritual grandchildren. this temptation, this spiritual temptation to return to the spiritual culture of idolatry of a people is always there. And it must, in every generation, a decision must be made. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord.